Hi, everybody. Sam Goodman bringing you another episode of Really Fucking Scary Stories. We are continuing down this gruesome and macabre path in Season 2. We've had all kinds of fun so far. We've got a lot more to go. I hope that you are doing amazing wherever you find yourself in this crazy, wild, wacky, and haunted world. I am here in the Pale Horse Media Co. studios in the beautiful, the sunny, and the haunted downtown Phoenix, Arizona. I'm buckled up. I have my gigantic cold brew coffee here. It's a Black Trenta cold brew for all of you that have asked about my coffee obsession. So I love just about any kind of coffee as long as it's strong. I don't like a lot of sugar in it, anything like that. It's usually cold brew of some kind. I'm a cold brew fiend. So I've got that. I've got a couple Buddhas sitting around me. I've got some crucifixes. I got some other stuff here. But most importantly, we have the SB7 Spirit Box. You remember that from our trips? I don't know if we can get it to work here. There you go. Listen, We've got the SB7 Spirit Box sitting here, and we are ready to dive in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited to continue this Season 2 of Really Fucking Scary Stories. We have had some amazing episodes so far. We've been really diving into this true crime stuff, and we've been touching on some hauntings. But today, we're going to talk about the legendary case of the Bell Witch. But before we do that, head over to the website, www.palehorsemedia.co. You can find this podcast. You can find links to all of our other podcasts, such as The Hop Nerd and Hey Y'all with Sam Goodman. I will just say, that's a fun one. So if you're into that kind of sort of, if you're into fun, if you like stuff that's not haunted, those two podcasts would probably be a lot of fun for you. And we have our merch store there. So if you like all the Really Fucking Scary Stories logos, we've got some really cool gear with that stuff on it. We've got the Season 2 logo over there. And there's just all kinds of cool stuff over at palehorsemedia.co. And please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, do all that kind of sort of stuff. Giving us a review helps us a ton. That helps bring other people to this party. Give it a share on your Facebook. Share it on Instagram. Let us know. Tag us in it. It is awesome. So let's jump right in to the story of the Bell Witch. So this one's really cool because it's getting back down into my neck of the woods. As I have probably beat to death, I was born and raised in southwestern Virginia, and I was closer to just about anything in Tennessee, any form of civilization in Tennessee, than I was to any form of civilization in Virginia. So a lot of times when we wanted to go do anything that you would categorize as FUN, as fun, we would go over into Tennessee, because you're kind of down. If you look at the image or the state outline of Virginia, it's kind of down in the tip, kind of going west, right? Southwest Virginia, down in the tip. You're closer to West Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee in particular, than most things. So this one is one of those kind of folklore things that again, I heard growing up, and it really, really kind of hits home. So the legend of the Bell Witch is one of the most famous pieces of Southern lore in general, just because of its coverage, the amount of stuff that happened, just the way the story spread. It's the story of a spirit who tormented a Tennessee home over 200 years ago. And as the story goes, she may or may not still lurk around Robertson County. So she became an iconic witch, inspiring a ton of movies, major motion pictures. She attracted the attention of soon-to-be presidents. And even more compelling is that unlike a lot of other paranormal figures, this story is supported by a lot of eyewitness accounts, affidavits, and documents penned by those that were involved in the haunting. So let's start kind of back at the beginning. In 1904, John Bell and his family settled on a 300-acre plot of land in a place that's now known as Adams, Tennessee. So once they settled, everything was kind of like copacetic. Everything was kind of cool. But about a decade later, in 1817, shit started to get real. Shit started to go down. Right, and it kind of starts the same way that you kind of think it would. It kind of starts with the random sounds, like the little bumps in the night, and kind of just the normal kind of, I guess it's more poltergeisty kind of things. You know, we talked about the Enfield poltergeist, just kind of that, starting with the sounds, the the scrapings and the bumps and all of that kind of stuff. Just your normal standard paranormal fare for the most part. But then things started to get a little bit more fucked, right? So we started getting this kind of pounding on doors, slaps on walls, chain rattling, and before too long, a critter showed up that they couldn't identify. So you've got all this kind of stuff happening, and now all of a sudden you get this thing that's like this weird hellhound something. God knows what it is, right? Just imagine like chilling at your house, and you're like, oh, look, there's what the fuck is that? And it was described as this: a half dog, half rabbit. Whatever the fuck it was, it definitely didn't belong in Adams, Tennessee. Right? And they're going, okay, so there's that thing. So soon enough, things intensified, right? So blankets were pulled from beds. Family members were scratched and kicked. They had their hair pulled. The Bell daughters, or the Bell daughter, Elizabeth Bell, obviously the daughter of John Bell, received the worst of the abuse and was slapped and pinched until her body was covered in bruises. So she got the shit kicked out of her by whatever this entity was / is. So John Bell decided at first to keep the strange events quiet because he's like, okay, what the fuck is this? People are going to think that we're insane. Or, probably to his credit, he's probably going, well, I don't want us to get locked up in the loony bin, and I don't want them to think that I'm beating the shit out of my daughter, right? I don't know, what am I going to tell them about this, like, shit started happening, pounding on walls, scraping, all this kind of crazy stuff. And then a bunny dog showed up outside of our house, and it was all kind of weird. And yeah, that's like one-way ticket to getting a hole drilled in your head to get the demons out of it, right? So he's like, okay, let's just keep this kind of quiet. But eventually he confided in a friend, and they formed a committee to investigate the strange happenings. So in this process of investigation, the spirit identified herself. So she's like, hey, y'all, I'm Kate Batts. So Kate Batts, a neighbor of the Bells with whom John Bell had some bad business dealings. So with that revelation, the ghost quickly became known as Kate. 3 Bell sons fought under General Andrew Jackson, and Jackson was so intrigued by the story. Yeah, that Andrew Jackson, right? That Andrew Jackson. That Andrew Jackson. He was so intrigued by that he insisted on visiting the family. So he like rolls up in there and he's like, let's see this shit. So they roll on up there to Adams, Tennessee, and they're just about there, right? And they're just about there. The legend goes that they were joking about the Bell Witch, that they're like, yeah, whatever, this is bullshit, whatever, dragging us up here to go see some fucking witch, right? And then almost immediately, the wheels of their wagon just went, what? And just stopped, right? They just stopped turning. So they're bringing a wagon. He's bringing men, right? And he didn't want to impose on the Bells, so he's bringing this wagon full of provisions. So he didn't want to be a bad house guest, right? He didn't just want to show up and say, like, feed us, y'all. Like, he's rolling up there. He's bringing some stuff to eat. He's bringing everything he needs to take care of himself, take care of the men that he's bringing with him. So they're just cruising along, and yeah, they're like joking about the witch, kind of poking fun, and then just boom, everything stops. The wagon just screeches to a halt. So all the men got off of their horses. They pushed, could not get it to move. It was like it was held by some invisible force. And reportedly, it only started moving when Jackson admitted. He said, well, it must be the witch. And then just like that, the wagon started moving again. So General Jackson, he's general at this time, he reaches the Bells' home. He watched while the witch got the best of everyone. He kind of just went to observe. It's reported that he really enjoyed the spectacle, and his quote was, "This sure beats fighting the British." So he must have enjoyed hanging out there and watching the witch. He thought it was a hoot. He just got a big old kick out of the whole thing. So they hung around for the night, and then at some point, the witch called out a bunch of his men as frauds. It was like a big deal, and then the next thing you know, they're all heading back to Nashville. So that was it. But this is a paranormal piece of evidence that was observed by then a general who later became a president, right, of the United States. So that's a huge turn of events compared to most paranormal sightings, most paranormal occurrences. So let's rewind here just a minute to make sure we're all kind of settled in with where we're at. So the trouble starts around 1817, right? Stuff just starts getting weird. They were hearing noises. They're thinking it's just natural causes. Then the bumping and scratching sounds. Then you start getting some chains rattling. Then you start getting slaps and stuff on doors. Then the daughter gets the shit kicked out of her, covered in pinches and bruises, right? They want to keep it quiet because they don't want folks to sound like they're crazy. Finally, they share some news, and then John Bell's sons, fighting under Jackson, share that story, and then boom, Jackson's there and then observes it as well. So after that night, this Bell Witch haunting, I'm not sure what they were calling it at the time, but these strange happenings, let's just say strange fucking things happening in the Bell House, became common knowledge in the area, and all sorts of people began coming to the Bell farm to investigate and try to see if they could help at all. You know, people were coming to say, like, this is crazy, what can we do to help you? They tried to communicate with whatever it was by asking it questions that could be answered with a number, how many people are in the room, how many horses are in the yard, that kind of sort of thing. The answers came in quick knocks. Some were rapping on the walls, and at first the numbers were always correct. Lights like candles or lamps started to appear, kind of filtering through the trees, right? You could kind of see them off into the wood lines across the Bell's yard through the fields of the farm. Some unseen thing started hurling chunks of wood and stone and pieces of tree limbs and even bricks at the family members and visitors. They came from nowhere with just an unnerving accuracy, and fear began to grow in Robertson County. So the thing begins to talk. As we kind of mentioned earlier, the thing started to talk. At first, it was just low, broken, whistling sound, strange, disembodied voices kind of murmuring, it gained strength. It became a distinct whisper, and finally, a very clear and very feminine voice. Naturally, some bro's like, hey, what are you? Right? And the disembodied voice says, I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but I have been disturbed. That's all it would say about itself at the time, right? The Bell family, it always seemed reluctant to talk about itself. It didn't want to tell the Bell family who it was. Some students of the witch believed that perhaps it really didn't know who or what it was, and much of what it did say was conflicting, so it was kind of mixed up. It was like, here's what I think you want me to say, right? Like, it was kind of like almost like a coerced confession, like you see in like some true crime drama, right? Because the spirit's like, I don't know, I'm a thing. I'm a thing. That's all it would say. As we said, it just said, I'm a spirit. I was once very happy, but now I'm disturbed. On one occasion, it said that it was a spirit of an Indian, a Native American, who had come to live in the area. Another time, it said that it was a spirit of an immigrant who had buried treasure under a large rock by a spring on the banks of the river, and that it wanted Elizabeth Bell to have it. The spirit gave specific instructions on locating the treasure, but after a day of digging in the designated spot, the spirit began laughing at them for their foolishness in believing such a story. Still another time, it claimed to be old Kate Batts, which, as we mentioned kind of at the beginning, it kind of landed on Kate Batts. So Kate Batts was a neighbor of the Bell family, and this is probably the piece that makes more sense out of all the answers that it could have given. Kate Batts was a neighbor of the Bell family. She and John Bell had a violent quarrel. They had a violent disagreement shortly after the Bell family arrived in Robertson County. She was also a woman well known as being kind of an eccentric, right? So she was kind of that person of that time that's like, there's a lady that lives over there in that house that eats children. She kind of had like that bad rap, right? But many people believed her to be a witch, whether right or wrong, right? They believed her to be a witch. She had a habit of begging for pins from practically any woman that she would meet. So back in the day, it was like a folklore thing, right? That you could lend people pins, and the folklore was that if you lent someone a pin, that you would have control over them. So we're talking like the little kind of like, like the little pins like you use in sewing, like, ow, that's sharp. That's a sharp little pin. You probably think about, like, for me, like I think about like grandma, grandpa, right? You've got granny, you've got like the little thing that looks like a tomato that she keeps all of her little sewing pins in.